Good afternoon, everybody. Hey, Big V here, Coach Verl Workman, and I am fired up and excited to be on this webinar today. Not only do we have a great guest with phenomenal content, we have a great sponsor, and we've got a lot of people that are joining this, that have joined the group. I'm just waiting for Peter to turn on the recording, and we'll just get this thing going.
Yeah, Verl, I think it's all recording here.
Okay, that's great then. So today's topic is say goodbye to peaks and valleys as our $1 million income earners share the secrets of enjoying year-round success. And I think it's interesting because the reason we came up with this topic is because as we move into the fall and then the winter selling season, so many agents check out and they say, well, we can't sell in a day, during this season, especially as we get into the later winter months. And the reality is that you don't have to have a big downturn in your business. And the high-income producers understand how to not only build today for what's getting ready to happen 3 and 4 months from now, but they learn that when everybody else is slacking, believing that they can do things, they can take advantage and grab that market share. And so we're going to share with you not only some good ideas, but we're going to share specific tactics and strategies on how you can say goodbye to those peaks and valleys. And we're excited to be able to do that today. I'm Verl Workman, founder and CEO of Workman Success Systems, speaker, trainer, and coach. We coach some of the elite agents around the country on how to make a difference in their business and in their lives. I want to encourage everybody to stay till the very end of the webinar. At the end of the webinar, we always have things where our presenters like to share with you things that will, they're going to talk about strategic ideas or critical systems that they use, and we always encourage our presenters to give, and at the end we're going to share with you how to get those free gifts and where you can download those, and we have great ones today, so make sure that you stay on till the very end of the webinar. I'd like to introduce our sponsor today. RISMedia's Content Solutions is our sponsor for today's webinar, where not only do we appreciate that it's a RISMedia webinar, but a lot of people don't know that they provide unbelievable content. One of our biggest challenges as real estate agents is what do we say to the consumer that creates valuable information for them and endears us to them and gives us something to say. I don't think the consumer cares whether or not we walked their dog or went to Starbucks, but if we can tell them what's going on in the industry and position ourselves as a thought leader, that's what RISMedia Content Solutions is all about. And I'd like to welcome Ann Kraft, Senior Vice President of RISMedia, and I've known Ann since she joined RISMedia since 2009. With over 10 years experience in the real estate industry, she's provided all kinds of marketing and technology solutions to the real estate agents and to the VIP brokers that they serve. Her specific roles and responsibility is that she works with the agents and brokers and her really high-end corporate marketing partners to identify solutions for everything from, how to work better in the industry to how do we get greater consumer engagement. She's got a wealth of knowledge, and she's one of the good people in this industry. So, Ann, thank you for being here, and thank you for sponsoring the webinar today.
Thanks so much, Verl. Happy to be here. Welcome, everybody, and we're happy to be, supporting and sponsoring the webinar today. Great topics. Looking so forward to hear from Cleve and his business strategies of staying consistent. And just real quick, one of the things that, like most realtors, your days are really busy in prospecting, showing homes, meeting with sellers, and it's very difficult to stay consistent if that's, obviously one of the threads of the topic today in your social media and engagement with clients. And RISmedia's Content Solutions offers a wealth of packages and services that can help you with being more consistent with information share. Libraries of over 11,000 articles, hundreds of videos, all there at your fingertips so that you can be more effective in blogging, social media, newsletters, and even just general engagement. So it's not always, when staying in touch with a sphere of influence that are not always ready to get engaged with a transaction, but you have to stay in touch. And what are you saying in those communications? And it's very difficult for realtors to be writers and try to come up with relevant, fresh content. So the Content Solutions platform that RISMedia offers is really a wealth of information at their fingertips that enable them to download and utilize and even edit articles to make them a little bit more hyper-local or personal. So it's really about a consistent approach in overall engagement with your sphere of influence. And there's a variety of packages and services all the way from a $30 a month package to be able to have access to a library to proactively download content and utilize it creatively in all of your communications, but also some very turnkey solutions for automated newsletters, website feeds, social media posting, drip email campaigns. So there's a ton. We really encourage everybody to take a look at what the Content Solutions packages have to offer. We're also offering a discount for all of today's webinar registrants. So if you go to RISmedia's contentsolutions.com, we have a special code that's listed there, which is RIS Webinar, which you can put in, which will get you a 20% discount off of any of the a la carte solutions or any of the value packages that we have as well. So we appreciate the opportunity to share that information with you here real quickly. And Verl, I'll turn it back over to you, but certainly let me know throughout the call if there's any additional feedback I can give on how content can really help create a more consistent business model for all of today's attendees.
You know what I love, Ann, is that as you're talking about that, there's people commenting on the message board that RISMedia is awesome. I love that from Jody. So thank you, Jody, for that comment. And I will tell you, for me, we make our money selling real estate, not writing articles and not doing market research. And if you can provide me with something that's at 90% and all I have to do is add my local twist to it, it's much easier to edit and add a personalized message to something than it is to create it from scratch. And so it allows us to leverage our time and focus on, the areas where we really make our money while staying in touch with our consumer. I think it's a phenomenal group of products.
Absolutely, and RISmedia has been seen as the industry information leader for well over 30 years now, and so looking to empower agents so that you can be seen at that level by your clients, that you're going to always have the most relevant, newsworthy information to share with them, just really positions you much more as a thought leader and a valuable information provider to anybody that's interested in real estate transactions.
Well, we appreciate it. Before I introduce Cleve, let me just do a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, you can, at the end of the conversation, we're going to give you a link where you'll be able to download a copy of the presentation. So we record every one of these webinars, so you'll be able to download it. So if you miss something or you miss something in a slide or you wanted Cleve to go over something, you didn't get it fast enough, you can watch the recorded version. The other thing is during the webinar itself, if you have questions for Cleve or for Ann or for myself, just type them in the questions toolbar on your GoToWebinar control panel. We monitor the questions during the presentation, and there will be appropriate places during Cleve's presentation where I'll just pause and we'll ask him some questions. And if there's questions, then I'll make sure that you have that we do our best to answer your questions. And then you can also follow this. You can also interact with other RISMedia webinar participants. If you go to #RISMediaWebinar on Twitter, you can interact with other people that are on the call. So thanks for being here. And without any further ado, allow me to introduce my good friend, superstar realtor and vacuum salesman of the month, Cleve Gaddis. Cleve, welcome to the call today, and I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about you.
Thanks, Verl. Nobody's referred to me as a vacuum cleaner salesman in a number of years.
But that's what I love about you most, is I'm always attracted to people who just flat out know how to sell. And anybody who's been in the door-to-door vacuum business and comes into real estate and makes over 6-7 figures is a guy that I know loves to sell. And so let me just give him a little bit of background about you, Cleve. Cleve is currently a managing broker and partner of Gaddis Partners at RE/MAX Center, one of RE/MAX's top teams in the state of Georgia, for 10 consecutive years, closing over $40, $50, and $60 million in sales annually. He's got literally 25 years experience in sales and sales management and training and coaching. He's well regarded for his expertise and for his willingness to invest in the success of others. And that's one of the reasons that we love Cleve, is because he really does care about making a difference in the agents that he coaches lives and those that he serves. He's also an experienced real estate investor and a property manager. He has a very unique perspective on real estate and sales and marketing, and you're going to see that today as we talk to him. He's a very high in-demand speaker throughout the United States in areas of investing, sales, and marketing. He hosts his own radio show. It's Atlanta Real Estate Show on Atlanta's Talk Radio 640. He's frequently, the radio show gives him a lot of exposure, and he's frequently quoted in not only local but also national media regarding the things that he talks about in trade associations, professional organizations, and civic groups. Before real estate, and this is where he goes back into sales, he had a lot of different sales management positions with Electrolux Corporation, and he was ultimately responsible for, managing 86 branch offices with over 1,000 employees. And I think that level of sales management coming into real estate from a professional background gives him a different approach and a different way of looking at the business. And that different way of looking at the business, it allows him to treat his business like a business, and that's what has allowed his business to be so successful and to grow. And on a personal note, I've known Cleve for a lot of years, not only as a top real estate agent, as a coaching client, and as a friend. He's got a fabulous family. He has great work and life balance. And what I love about Cleve is he likes to get up every day, and he loves what he does. He doesn't feel like he has a job. And those are the kind of people I like to surround myself with. And Cleve, we're glad you're here. We feel fortunate to have you as a coach with Workman Success Systems. And your clients that you're coaching have unbelievable levels of success, and it's fun to watch how excited you get about the level of success that your clients are having. And that's where I get my joy. So thanks for being here, and let's jump into it.
My pleasure. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So Cleve, talk to me about why agents have these peaks and valleys in their business and how we can eliminate them.
So we'll get into the details as we move forward through the slides, but most real estate agents sort of work on this seesaw. So business is either way up or business is either way down, and generally they don't take the appropriate steps to make sure that they're trying to level out their business. And Verl, what happens is when you start to do that, you are basically borrowing from your good times in order to support the lean times. And you really don't want to do that, because when you think about it, it's really like going to the teller window at the bank. And Verl, if you want to go to the next slide, and ultimately, you've got your deposits line and you've got your withdrawal lines, and you're certainly making a withdrawal when you're borrowing from the good times to pay for the bad times. But ultimately, I think the people who allow their real estate business to have these real peaks in the spring and summer and early fall selling months, and then allow the business to drop off regardless of where they are in the winter, the late fall, winter, early winter, basically they go into that last category to the right. So they're fools and their money. And what happened is I owned a fairly large brokerage in Atlanta, Georgia for a number of years. I bought it in 2006 and had to sell it. Had to get out of it in 2009, and I would spend my time trying to figure out how to get from here to there. In other words, how to make my money last from January all the way through to April, and I thought that was a weird way to do it. So my first recommendation, Verl, is that we all learn to embrace all conversations. One of the problems is that real estate agents don't necessarily look at each opportunity to interact with a potential buyer or a seller the way they should. And so we started doing some research, and we took the total U.S. population and figured out those that are over 18 years old that could buy and sell homes. And long story short, 22%, or 1 in 5 of every person you see out there in the world today. So if you're at Starbucks, it's 1 in 5 in Starbucks. If you're at McDonald's, it's 1 in 5 at McDonald's. If you're at your kid's school, it's 1 in 5. 1 in 5 people you come in contact with will make a change in their housing over the next 3 years. And it's never too early to start a conversation with them. I don't know about you, Verl, but I have a hard time telling, just looking at a person and say, hey, is that a good seller prospect? Is that a bad seller prospect? Is that a bad buyer prospect? Is that a good buyer prospect? But when I learn to look at them and say, hey, 1 in 5 of every person that I get an opportunity to talk to is going to make a change in their housing sometime over the next 3 years, it puts everything in perspective. And then I value any conversation I can have, even if I'm having it 2 years before they're ready to sell, because then I can get them as a client. I can start to communicate information with them that they will consider to be valuable on the market today, build a relationship, so when they're ready to sell, boom, they think of me.
So I think that's interesting. You really can't tell. One of the things you just said is you can't tell when you walk in a room who's a good lead and who's a bad lead. Well, according to this, there really are no bad ones.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, I mean, and the issue is when real estate people are generally out there prospecting, they're looking for someone that wants to buy something that wants somebody that wants to sell something, and they're looking for somebody who wants to start that immediately so they can book the commission income sooner than later. Well, you're never going to build a big pipeline unless you start to embrace every conversation with every single prospect. And if you start to look at yourself as a market expert, you're going to always have something to talk to them about, whether they're renting now and planning to buy, whether they're owning now and plan to rent or invest or whatever it is. Once you start to become a market expert, you will have tons of stuff to talk to them about. One of the real keys, Verl, is I talk to people every day, and they get really excited about a big month of closing. So they say, hey, I closed X number of millions of dollars worth of transactions. I earned X number of dollars worth of commission. The problem is, Verl, is they're celebrating the wrong thing. In real estate, we don't need to celebrate the closings because the closings are simply a result of all the good activities that took place before the closings. So if we created our business plans and instead of saying, hey, I want to make $300,000 this year, if we actually backed everything up and said, here's the deal, I want to go on 60 listing presentations this year. And then if we went to work and we concentrated on achieving those activity milestones on a weekly and a monthly basis, you would find that the results would follow. This is a chart of actually my activities for 2014. On the very bottom in the lighter blue, those are the previews that I went on. So that's if I went to look at a FSBO or an expired or something where I didn't know it was going to be a listing presentation, but I was trying to get one. In the rust color or the orange, those are listing appointments, and you can see how my listing appointments go up and down certain times of the year, but I'm always trying to get as many as I can. In the gray, those are the listings that followed. The yellow are the contracts or the gold, and then the blue are the closings. And one of the things, and it's kind of hard to see on this, but as you see my listing appointments go up, as you see that line get fatter, if you'll look in the next month or two, you'll see the blue line get fatter at the very top. So the activities in March led to an improved number of closings in May, and the increased activities in June led to additional closings in August and September. And so you don't always get the benefit of what you're doing today at the end of the week. Sometimes you wait 60 or 90 days. But when you start to make that you start to take a long-term perspective on the market, everything will start to change because you'll have this huge backlog of people that you've already talked to that are working to get their homes ready or working to get their credit ready, and every month you're going to be getting 4 or 5 transactions from people that you might have talked to 6 months ago. It's huge, Verl. It's huge.
So that's kind of a different way than a lot of people look at their business. They look at their month-to-month closings. They track the transactions. They don't track the activities that create them. So that's a big mind shift. You're looking out. How far out are you looking? You're looking 60, 90 days out or 30 days out? Tell me how far you're looking out.
Well, we've already put our 2016 plan in place all the way through the end of the year. Because if I don't know what I'm going to be required to do in 2016, then I don't know what the activities are that I need to do in September, October, November, and December of this year in order to get ready. So, Verl, most people – go ahead, Verl. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say it just makes sense. It makes sense that you're focusing on activities today so that you don't have a dip in your business in October, November, and December.
And there are so many agents that are like, oh, my God, I'm so busy, and I'm going from here to there, and I'm running ragged, and I'm this. And what happens is they put deals under contract, and they're running around doing all the things that they need to do to get it to close. The problem is that they're not meeting with new potential buyers. They're not meeting with new potential sellers. And then they have this big closing month, and on the first day of the next month, they look out and they go, oh, my gosh, what am I supposed to do now? And if we learn to judge whether or not a week was good by whether or not we did the activities that we need to do in order to grow our business. And as a person working with buyers, if we just said, listen, I want to meet with 3 new face-to-face prospects every week. I didn't say good prospects or bad prospects. I want to meet with 3 new ones every week. Verl, I'm telling you, if you were the worst salesperson on earth, if you met with 3 new people every single week, you would close a ton of business. A ton of business.
A lot of agents don't want to meet with them unless they're qualified or unless they're ready to go right now. You're saying you don't care? You'll meet with them anyway?
I absolutely will. So if somebody wanted to sit down and have coffee with me at Starbucks, or I needed to meet him and show him a house, just to sort of make that connection, because what I want is, first of all, an opportunity to be face-to-face with them where there's nothing between me and them. Now, I'm not going to spend 2 months running around trying to sell somebody a house, but I am willing to meet with them and understand their needs. We meet with people all the time, Verl, for example, this month, that will buy 2 years from now. But because we have a conversation and we dig into their needs and get them to the right lender and get them on a drip campaign and follow it with them once a month, based on the ABCD program, the ABC program that we teach, they are sort of in our pocket when they're ready to go because we're the only ones that have invested anything in them. Everybody else wants to ignore them because they're not ready to buy.
I love that. Talk to me about specific focus.
When I say, if somebody says to me, Cleve, hey, is your business successful right now? I don't judge it based on the number of closings that we've had, and we'll close about $60 million this year. I judge the success of my business based on the number of listing presentations I do. And the issue is, Verl, is everybody in real estate, we stay overwhelmed because we're focusing on advertising, we're focusing on our marketing, we're focusing on the sellers, and now there's no showings, or now there's too many showings, or now you've got 12 offers, or now you have no offers. There's so much noise going on. And if you learn to have a very singular, specific focus, so if everybody out there who was working buyers said, I'm going to judge the success of my months by the number of new buyers I meet with face-to-face, they'd still have all the other things that they need to do, but it would free their mind from all of the brain damage that is caused by all the other things that we need to worry about, all the this, that, and the other, and it puts everything in perspective. So if I have a seller that's causing me problems, I need a new seller. I'm not saying I'm going to ignore my existing one, but I need new sellers because it'll give me fresh energy and fresh blood, and it'll make me feel better and enthused, and it'll give me more energy to deal with my problem client. Same thing on the buyer side. So focusing more specifically actually frees your mind from all of the baggage and the brain damage that comes with being in real estate. And I call it brain damage because it is. It's brain damage.
And your specific focus is the number of listing appointments you do in a day, a week, and a month?
The number of listing presentations. Every single week I want to do 2.63 listing presentations a week. And Verl, sometimes I hit it and sometimes I don't. But every week, that's what I'm trying for. And if I'm behind, I'm actually behind 13 listing appointments year to date, and I need to make those appointments up, and I need to keep on at that run rate of 2.63 per week from now to the end of the year. And next year, that might be 3.5.
So how are you going to make those up?
We're going to, well, so some of the simple things that we can do, everybody always forgets to go back and work their sphere of influence and their past clients in their database, especially when, you know, you had a closing with a client 3 years ago and you haven't so much as thought of them in the last 3 years. So when you contact them, it can be a little bit awkward. And what we recommend is using the forward technique, and it's really simple. You just have a sheet in front of you, and we may or may not be able to give this out as a free gift for those of you who are on the call. But basically, you're going to keep your focus in 4 specific areas. Number 1, family. Number 2, occupation. Number 3, recreation, and number 4, dreams. And so it just gives you a good guide when you get on the phone. Hey, Verl, how you doing? Hey, how's your family? How's Colleen? How are the kids? What about the in-laws? How are Brianne's in-laws doing? Those kind of things. It's easy to open up the conversation. How's your job? How's your business? How long have you been at your current job? What have you been doing lately? Are you still going skiing? Are you going up to the lake every year like you'd like to do? What are your plans for holidays? Things like that. Sometimes in order to reconnect with someone, you just need to give them a call and talk about their favorite subject, which I can assure you is not you and your real estate business. Their favorite subject is them. Their favorite subject is what they have going on. And when you make somebody feel good about what they have going on, they're going to feel good about you.
So what kind of, you've got, tell me a little bit about your team, Cleve. You have buyer's agents. Kind of give me a breakdown of what your team looks like.
So it's me, and we have 6 agents who predominantly work with buyers, although I do have 2 agents that work with some sellers along the way with me as well. And then we have 2 inside sales associates who are responsible for putting together the programs that generate the leads and then converting those leads to then farm them out to the sales agents on the team. And then we have 3 or 4 administrative staff members.
Talk to me a little bit about how their daily activities and what it is you track and how do you keep them productive.
So we've talked about, hey, Cleve's definition of success is the number of listing appointments. An agent needs to have a daily definition of success. And, Verl, this is something you came up with that I think is brilliant. It's a 61 points of rhythm. So when you achieve 61 points and the 61 points of rhythm, then ultimately it's a successful day. When you fall short, you need to, pick it up a little bit the next day. And you're going to get points for making calls, and the goal is to get about 25 points there. You're going to get points for sending out emails. You're going to get points for sending out handwritten notes. You're going to get points for showing buyers, not just 1 home, but 2 homes, because when you transition, hey, I'm going to meet you and show you 1 home, and you show them 2 homes, you're starting that that process of transitioning them over to a buyer client. You're going to get appointments for offers written, listing appointments, agency agreements, closing, and then sort of one new thing. And that is, at the end of the day, what is one new thing that I can learn or try or experiment with or read or participate in, whatever it might be. And this daily success habit down the left-hand side, it's not a schedule for planning what you're going to do. It's a plan for putting together really what you did based on lead generation. In the upper right-hand corner, you're categorizing the number of people you followed up with and people you that are B clients you put into a drip campaign, C clients you put into a drip campaign, showings, things like that. And in the center of the page, it's notes and your to-do list. So you're not, if somebody says, hey, I want you to send me some listings in so-and-so subdivision, you're not stopping and doing that right now while you're in the middle of your calls. You're typically going to wait and do that at the end of your calls. And then at the bottom, Verl, it allows you to check off the number of dials and answers. So you can click it once for a dial, twice for an answer, and it'll actually put an X. It'll allow you to check off the number of appointments you've set, the appointments you've set for loan officers, and then ultimately at the end of the day, it'll show you the number of dials and contacts. If we just focused on doing the things we need to do to try to reach out to our sphere, past clients, people we know, and make some contacts with them. And again, if we don't know what to say, Verl, and it's just past clients, just pull out the forward technique and use that as you're making your calls.
Yeah, the key here is just it's doing the right things every single day will give us a predictable result. When we know how many calls you have and how many conversations it takes to get an appointment, while we know that when we have appointments, we generate closings, we can go back and increase or decrease our numbers based on what our goals are. It's predictable. And that's the problem, is that most agents, and it's so common, by the way, we just get focused on the results. So we make calls until we set the appointment, but that's not the purpose. You need to say, hey, I'm going to make calls until I get my 25 made, because if I do that 5 days a week or 6 days a week for a month, then I'll know, hey, by the time I make 12 calls, boom, there's one appointment. When I make my next 12, there's 2 appointments, and you'll start to really feel good about, hey, these are the activities that I need to do in order to achieve X, Y, Z. And you won't focus on, hey, I set 2 appointments today, because that won't matter. It'll be, I made my 25 calls, because then you're focused and your definition of success is based on the right thing, which is the activity, not the wrong thing, which is the result. You want to focus on the result, and you don't want to confuse activity for achievement, meaning if you continue to make 25 calls a day every day, you need to be setting some appointments, but you got to focus on those activities first. Yeah, that's right. So role play with me for just a second. Have a little bit of fun. When you use the forward technique, when you bring up you're in real estate, or you want their business?
Well, a lot of the times, Verl, people, and most of the people who are calling the sphere of influence or past clients or database, I mean, most of the people know you. In fact, I would imagine a lot of people on the phone have a good-sized database of people who know who they are and know they're in real estate. And if that's the case, to be honest with you, I don't bring it up until the very end. I don't mention, hey, don't forget I'm still in real estate. If you need anything or you have any questions or want to appeal your taxes or anything like that, let me know. And more importantly, if you have anybody that you know who's interested in buying or selling a home, I'd love to get their name and number from you. I'll do it at the end typically.
Yeah, that's great. And when you're doing prospecting and you're new to an area, give me a couple of ideas on how you would begin to build that list.
So when we're going into a new area, we're actually doing some direct mail into the area. So we have a buyer letters that are, we've got a buyer that we're working with, and we're having a hard time finding a home that fits their need, and so we'll mail into that area. But there's great ways. Verl, you can have an open house, and you can call people in the neighborhood that are not on the do not call list, and have a quick conversation with them about the open house, and say something very simply, hey, I don't know if it's something you're interested in, but we have a special service called a market snapshot. It's really like getting a email right to you on a monthly basis that is sort of like getting a checking account statement for your home's value every single month, and I can send that right to you. Are you interested? Next thing you know, I've got all their information.
It's just about going out there and making touches, right? You got to put yourself out there and meet people.
And it's about valuing the touch, not the result of the touch. Because if you embrace the touch, then you'll do it over and over again. And Verl, I'm telling you, somebody can be a really bad salesperson. If they reach out and talk to enough people, they will sell plenty of houses. So, Verl, the number 95%, if I said to you, Verl, what do you think 95% means? What would that mean to you? What do most people who've been in the real estate business a long time say about the number of listings they get when they go on appointments?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I get 95%. I get almost all of them.
I list 95% of the listing appointments I go on, and I got 2 things to say. Number 1, Verl, somebody who says that, they would obviously lie about other things too. And number 2, if I only went on listing appointments with my mother, I would list 95% of them as well. Now,
So you don't think 95% is a good number? Is that what you're saying?
I think it's a great number. I don't think it's an accurate number. I think whoever does that is misleading themselves on their ability to get listings. Verl, I can't find 95% of the people I talk to every year who actually sell their home, period. So if I can't find 95% of the people that I'm talking to who actually sell their home, there's no way for me to convert 95% of the listing appointments. So for me, it's 60%. Which means if I want 60 listings, I need to go on 100 listing appointments. If I want 120 listings, I got to go on 200, and that's just the way it is. Now, some of them I'll list now, some of them I'll list next year, but I don't count them as a conversion until next year. One of the things that's important, and Verl, I don't want to give away any surprises, but we may or may not have this spreadsheet as a free gift for people at the end of the show here. But this is something that helps me figure out the activity. So in this spreadsheet is really simple. Over kind of in your left-hand section, I can put my income goal, and it'll do all the math for me. I can put the average commission per closing. So if your sales price is $200,000 or $300,000, you can $200,000 or $300,000, you can figure out what the average commission is. Put in the average commission percentage. It'll show you the number of closings you need. Then I'm going to say what percentage of my business is from buyers or sellers. Then I'm going to say what percentage of the buyers I put under contract will close, what percentage of the sellers I put under contract will close, and then also what percentage of the listing appointments will list with me and what percentage of the buyer presentations will actually commit to work with me. And so when I punch in all those numbers at the top, then it calculates all those numbers for me at the bottom. So in this case, agent wants to make $300,000 a year. Average commission on a sale $7,600. Long story short, if you look in that bottom category, they need to do 4 or 3.97 listing appointments per month, and they need to do 3.22 buyer presentations per month. And so it just works all those numbers backwards for you. Now, I will tell you, there's no full-time agent out there who should only do 4 listing appointments a month. If you're focused on listings, you probably ought to be doing somewhere closer to 6 or 8 listing appointments a month. But still, focus on the activities, and if somebody does those first 2 columns worth of activities, then look at that. We're saying the gross sales volume per month will be $833,000, the annual sales volume will be $10 million, and they'll make $300,000 in commission. And I like that. So you got to track it, and you got to be honest. You got to be honest and transparent.
I gotta pause for just a minute because first of all, you're a guy that's doing a 7-figure income business. You're making a lot of money in real estate, and you're telling me that you only close 60% of the listings that you go on. And I've talked to so many people who say that I have a buy referral only business and I close 95 or 98% of all of my listings. 2 things come to mind, Cleve. First of all, you have to set your ego aside and you have to be authentic in your numbers if they're going to mean anything to you, and you've done that. You've said, okay, I don't really care to tell everybody that I'm closing every listing presentation I go on. Are there things that you do or you work on during the listing process to focus on increasing that percentage? I guess if you qualified heavier in the beginning, it would go up, but you don't seem to care about that.
No, I think if I do that, I am majoring in the wrong thing. And so here's the deal. I can't make 98% of the people I go on a listing appointment, I can't even make them like me. So we have to understand that, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but I have a very specific way of selling. I'm very strong. I'm very opinionated about the way things are supposed to work. And unfortunately, not everybody even likes that. And I don't have a problem. Sometimes I'll list 65%. Sometimes I'll list 56%. But here's the deal, Verl. I'll go on listing appointments that will not list with me this year that will ultimately list with me next year or the year after when the time comes. So I don't worry about that a whole lot. And we do everything we can. We follow a very specific listing presentation. We've got a wonderful iPad presentation, all that kind of stuff. So we're doing everything we can to make it as high as we possibly can. But listen, I've never come anywhere close to getting 98% of the listings that I go on listing appointments with. Never.
Yeah, the other thing that I think that you said that kind of resonated with me, Cleve, was that, hey, if I only go on listing presentations with my mother and cousins, then I'm going to close 95%. But you're prospecting, so you're out there meeting with people you've never met before, and the more at-bats you have, the more likely it is you're going to hit your income goals. And for you, it's just all about getting up to the plate.
And growing up in the direct sales business, it's all about a premium product at a premium price. So we don't go out and try to figure out how to discount our fees in order to get every listing, because the truth is we charge typically more fees than other people do in the market. And we do that by design, because I only want people to work with me who really want to work with me. I want somebody to work with me who looks at me as an expert and will take my advice and guidance. And unfortunately, that's just not 100% of the people I meet. I wish it was, but it's not.
How's that translated to your team?
So we try to keep all of the agents focused on converting a certain percent, and when we hand them leads from whether it's a Zillow or a self-generated or a sign call or whatever it is, we expect them to see close 30% of the leads that we give them, and that allows for buyers that are not qualified or are going to buy later or something like that. But I worked with you, Verl, for a long time, and you talked about, hey, you need to be transparent with your team. You need to give the numbers. And, man, this is a quote from me. Don't let them see behind the curtain. I didn't want any of my agents to know what was going on behind the scenes because I thought they would think that I made too much money if they saw how the splits work and things like that. And I'm not saying we give them our full financials, but we take every single lead on the seller side of the business, every single lead on the buyer side of the business, and we paint a picture all the way through to closing, and we do it every single Wednesday morning. And when I first did that, Verl, I was sitting there. I was so nervous I almost wet my pants the first day to give them all the information. But it really caused my business to explode with our gross commission income almost tripling in the last 3 years, so it's huge. Another thing, Verl, is most people do not track their leads the way they should. And in our coaching program, we say that it's either an A, a B, or a C lead, and based on whether it's an A, a B, or a C, you follow it with them differently. But as a lead comes in, it needs to get put into a lead tracker form. And now, Verl, this is not exactly the form that you use. It's one that I started using when I was just on my own and I hadn't had the benefit of your coaching program. But it's a way to categorize every single lead. And if we just taught our buyers agents, or if we as buyers agents just went through and reviewed all the leads we have in the pipeline, categorized them, who do I need to follow up with every week? Who do I need to follow up with every other week? Who do I need to follow up with once a month? And then really the only way to get off the lead tracker, Verl, to be honest with you, is they either need to die or file a restraining order. I mean, I hate to say that, but that's the only way I think you should get off my prospecting list.
I say they buy or tell you to die.
Exactly. And every once in a while, if you're doing marketing right, they will not only will they tell you to die, they'll use some other fun words in there with it.
So, being a dialogue king and practicing scripts and dialogues and knowing what to say, how does that make a difference?
It's either a matter of you leading the way in the transaction or your client leading the way in the transaction. And the problem is your client is getting their advice from their mother or dad or a coworker or somebody at Boy Scouts. They're getting their advice on what they should and shouldn't do in a real estate transaction from people who have absolutely no idea what they should be doing. So every single day, as real estate professionals, we need to understand what's going on in the market, which is really very easy with things like RISMedia and all the publications that they're doing and things like Keeping Current Matters and stuff. We'll talk about that in just a second. It's easy to stay an expert in your market, but then you always have something to talk about. And we'll talk about, Verl, how that gets practically applied on a daily basis in another couple slides. I'll give them some specifics. You got to make sure you're doing your research. And again, my sort of preferred places to do research, although there are plenty, would be something like RISMedia, tons of articles. That's one right there that actually is just from a few days ago that says existing home sales maintain a steady incline. And so I would want to take that information. I would want to figure out how the data pertains to that in my local market. So people are saying, gosh, I don't know how to be a market expert and do the research. Trust me, most of these listing services have great statistical tools that go along with them that are designed to help you understand the market. Bottom left-hand corner is NAR. They've got tons of great information. Upper right-hand corner is Keeping Current Matters. It's a subscription-based service, just like the content stuff on RISMedia Content Solutions. You can pay a monthly fee, and they'll prepare information for you to be able to use to motivate clients. And then, Verl, another great way to get market research is just to read the social media posts made by realtors and experts and publishers of information. I get a ton of information that we use in our business and on the radio show just from reading social media posts, going to the source of the information and reviewing it myself. It's very powerful. It's very powerful.
I just had a thought as you were talking right there, Cleve, that not everybody has a radio show, but we should all be prepared as if we did.
Well, here's the thing. When I was growing up, Verl, my dad told me if I didn't. My dad was a CPA, and he didn't love the fact that I liked to talk all the time, and so he would say, "Well, Cleve, if you don't have anything to say, you probably should keep your mouth shut." And so I started thinking, well, but if what I say is important, meaning if I do some research and I have some important information to say, then I should probably shout it from the rooftop. So I'm not saying that everything I say is absolutely accurate. I'm not saying that all of my opinions are correct. I'm not saying I'm the world's greatest expert in real estate, but I will guarantee you that I am more of an expert in real estate, just like everybody on this call is today. They're more of an expert in real estate than almost everybody else they come in contact with. So it should be easy to feel like an expert. Verl, most people look at their business as, hey, this is something that's starting November, December, January, February. Business has kind of dropped down. I have agents in my own office that really stop working after September and they start back working in March. And I can't believe it, because the problem is when you do that, you're borrowing money from your big months to pay for your crappy months. And what we need to do is we need to make money in the big months and save a lot of that money, and then we need to continue to make enough money to pay our bills during the off months. And so this is an example of the closings. This is specific single-family detached, not townhomes and condos, that sold in the metro Atlanta market last year. And you can see, Verl, that the biggest months of the year were May, June, and July, where about 10% of the volume, you can see over the right-hand column, it shows you the percentage, and the left-hand column shows you the number of closings. And everybody says the business goes away in November and December, but in December there were 9% of the closings for the year. And in November there were almost 8% of the closings for the year. So there are a ton of closings that go on 12 months a year. What happens is we'll go on listing appointments and people say, well, maybe I'll wait till after the holidays. But if I pull out this chart and show them how many closings are taking place November, December, January, and February, I can encourage them to go ahead and keep the house on the market. And at a minimum, they will be ahead of everybody else who starts early next year. And more than likely in the Atlanta market, they will sell their home. And we try to take these statistics and apply it on a neighborhood, city, zip code, county, or school district basis. So if the popularity of homes and the desirability of homes in an area is caused by the school district, then put together something like this that analyzes the market for people in the school district. And it doesn't have to be fancy like this. I have somebody that helps me do this type of research. You can write it on a piece of paper. Take a legal pad and just write down the number of closings in certain market areas every month for the last 12 months and take it with you on a listing appointment. And if you go on something in October and you want them to be motivated to put the house on the market, you need to give them the reasons why that makes sense and will benefit them.
You know, this is a really interesting way of looking at the business, understanding that the sales decrease maybe 2 or 3%. They're not decreasing 50% or 80%, and it certainly doesn't justify taking those months off and waiting till, you know, spring to start selling or listing houses again.
And interestingly enough, last year, Verl, in December, our average sales price was one of the highest months of the year in 2014. So when I'm going on listing appointments from now to the end of the year, you don't think I'm going to have that chart that shows, hey, at the end of last year, the sales price in December was 3% higher than the months before? Because ultimately, I can say if you want to make more money, you might want to put the house on the market now. Now, that's motivation. So people are always trying to stall, hey, the price is too high, I don't want to move forward with the purchase, or it's the wrong time of the year, I don't want to list, or I can't find the home I'm looking for, so I'll just wait, or I can't list before I find a new home, or I'm just going to wait for the sake of waiting. Everybody's always getting ready to get ready. They got the, what do you call that, Verl, when you say when they got the get ready disease? I'm cooked in the squat, ready to, what is it?
That's it. It's Zig Ziglar, cooked in the squat, fixing to rise.
Right. So every appointment you go on, they're cooked in the squat, fixing to rise, which means they ain't doing nothing. That's a southern way to say they're cooked in the squat, getting ready to rise, or I can't afford to. And the key is that you can use all of these terms to the right. The amount of inventory that's out there, the market's ability to absorb the inventory. That just means how many homes every single month does the local market close in your neighborhood, in your school district, zip code. What's going on with interest rates? Is it a buyer's market, seller's market? Is it a balanced market? What's going on with appreciation? Because if your market is appreciating and interest rates are likely to go up, it's going to cost a buyer a lot more money to buy a house next year than it would this year. So all of these key terms are things that you can talk about to give somebody the inspiration to move forward. So very important, Verl. So very important.
Yeah, I think it's critical. So what are some of the catchphrases and things that you use? By the way, I asked Cleve to put this together for us because he rattles them off the top of his head. And he went through this exercise and created some objection handlers or things to say when people give you a certain kind of response. So it's hard to see the screen, Cleve, but give me an example how using the right words can get people to take action right now, regardless of what's going on in the market.
Verl, I mean, the screen's perfectly clear to me. You might need contacts or something, or glasses. Are you getting old, Verl? What's your problem? So let's pretend for a minute that you're the seller and you say to me, hey, I want to wait until after the holidays to list. Let's say that's the first, and that actually is the top one there. Everything you see on that sheet in yellow, those are things that the agents on the call will need to go back in and customize to make sure that it's something that works in their situation. But I say, hey, Verl, I totally understand why you why you'd want to wait. I might even feel the same exact way. But did you know that during the holiday season you'll have much less competition from other listings? Believe it or not, Verl, there are 55% less houses on the market during the holiday season, and sales are very strong. In fact, last year, the average sales price was the highest month of the year in December. Let me show you a quick chart of what happened, and then we're going to ask them some type of tie down or sort of a closing question to get them to move forward. And sometimes it might be as simple as this: hey, Verl, I know it's inconvenient to list over the holidays, but really the answer is simple. Do you want to list your house at a time when you have more competition, or do you think it makes more sense for you to list when you have less?
I think it makes sense when there's less competition and I can get more for my property.
Perfect. And then, so as we were taught in the vacuum cleaner business, we'd hand them the order form and say, press hard, there's 4 copies.
Press hard, cheap carbon.
Exactly right. So you got to ask them to list the house with you. And so we cover, I want to wait until next year to purchase on the buyer. I'm not finding what I want as a buyer, so I'm just going to wait. We cover, hey, the seller's just asking, is now a good time to list home? And you got to be very specific. And then we cover one that I think is key, where a buyer says, hey, look, I'm not paying any more than $250,000 for this house. The buyer and the seller are about $8,500 apart. And it gives you the specific words to use to make sure to drill everything down to really what's important and what should drive the decisions made by the buyer in that situation. And Verl, it gives you the little script to use, and at the bottom you can barely see that some of the information is blue. It tells you what information to put together to give them to prove your point.
It's by the way, this is brilliant dialogue, and Cleve wrote this, and this is one of the downloads that we'll make available to you at the end of the webinar today. I think it's great. A couple of questions. Somebody asked a question about what contact manager you use as you're following up with people, and they're not ready today, but they're ready in 2 years or 3 years. What's your CRM, and how you doing that long-term follow-up?
So we use Top Producer, and we have really plans for everybody. So somebody who's looking to buy in the next 60 days, or somebody who's looking to buy in a year, or somebody who's a new buyer with credit, or somebody relocating to the area. We have different plans for everybody. So one of the things we do for our people that are relocating to the area, Verl, is we have this 52-week drip email campaign, which just talks about fun things to see and do in Atlanta. And it is amazing how people will interact with us when we're sending something that's really about them having fun.
Love it. How does your thought process? Yeah.
Verl, I don't even remember what year it was. Let's call it 1995. I was running all of Electrolux's offices in South Carolina, and I had a manager in Greenville, South Carolina, who said to me, hey, look, December's the worst month of the year. We just sort of write it off, blah, blah, blah. And so he had a terrible December the first month I took over his office, and so I decided early the next year that I was gonna change the way he looked at everything. Earl Nightingale, if you haven't ever listened to it, recorded I guess he probably wrote it, but recorded The Strangest Secret, and it basically says we all become what we think about most of the time. And Earl says that's the strangest secret. He has, by the way, the most beautiful voice I've ever listened to in a recording, if you're interested. But so I decided that I was going to tell George that December, that was my manager's name, December should be the best month of the year, and here's the things he needed to do to move the business in the right direction. And I was going to tell him how awesome December's had been for me in different areas. And so I started working with him in April. And Verl, you've never seen anything like this. They sold more cleaners, more parts, more service, more everything than it was his biggest month of the entire year. Not because the market was better that time of the year, but because he believed the business should be better, therefore it was better. And it was the coolest thing to see. And only after that did I tell him that really never had I had a really, really, really outstanding December. But he was my project, and we were going to focus on Decembers from now on.
I love that. I love that. It's not what it happens to the market. It's your activities leading up to that market that make the biggest difference.
He was selling. He would offer vacuum cleaners as stocking stuffers. Now you can't even get a vacuum cleaner in a stocking, but I guarantee you he sold a lot of them.
Love it.
So when we're focusing on our business, Verl, we got to focus on what's limiting the business, and we got to take care of our bottlenecks. And this is an interesting concept, and I know we're running out of time here, but if you looked at a real estate business as 6 different parts or 7 different parts, for me, my bottleneck initially was my ability to convert the leads. I didn't have any problem generating leads. A lot of people think they have a problem generating leads. That's generally not your problem because it's easier than you think. But if you want all those balls that are in that bottle to get out, what we've got to do is we've got to get the neck of the bottle open so more can get out. So focus on what's limiting you. And there's a book by Eli Goldratt called The Goal. It's a fable about a manufacturing plant, and it talks about how they find the steps that are limiting the output or the throughput of the plant. And it's just a cool concept. And so I realized that I needed to focus on my limiting step, my bottleneck. And these are just 3 different tracks of where your bottleneck could be. And this is me describing the parts in the process: generating leads, converting the leads, doing presentations, marketing the listings. This is from a seller side, negotiating the contracts and closing. And in the top example, that agent is limited by the lead flow. So they need to concentrate on that lead flow so they can open up things that flow through the system. On the second opportunity, Verl, this agent has a bottleneck in the presentation. So they don't have a good presentation, or they don't have good skill set, or they don't have good market research. And so they don't need to focus on everything. They don't need to stay focused on all 6 categories. Just pick the presentation and make the presentation better. And the third example I actually gave, I don't think it's very common, but this is an agent who has a problem with negotiating. And I will tell you, a couple times a month I talk to an agent. Their limiting step is negotiating. They don't have a clue as to how to be a good negotiator. And in this particular case, that agent should read something about negotiating. It should read something about the win-win concepts. Not that my concept is not win-win. My concept is my client wins and everybody else thinks they win, but it's still a win-win concept. And so realize where your bottlenecks are and then take the steps to remove those bottlenecks. Very, very important.
Sorry, but you got to say that again. You don't do win-win?
Well, I want everybody in the end to feel like it's a win-win, but I want my client to really win, and I want everybody else to feel like they've won.
You actually represent your client.
That is correct.
Yeah, nobody says it. Nobody has the guts to actually say, I'm here to do the best thing for my client. That is
well, and ultimately, I do what's best for my client by being very friendly and open with the other agent. And it's okay to apologize and say, listen, I would if I could. I can't get it done. Here's what they want to do. You know, let's see if you're a better salesperson than I am. That's still representing my client because I'm trying to get them what they want.
Right. All right. Tell me about coaching in your life.
Oh, Verl. I have too many coaches, and I love my coach. I have a love-hate relationship with coaches because they all try to hold me accountable, and I don't want anybody to hold me accountable, but the main thing I need is somebody to hold me accountable. So I've got a real estate coach, one that helps me with marketing. Verl, you do a lot of coaching with me, and some of the stuff that you do and the fact that you and I have a conversation, and the next time we have a conversation, you bring up what we talked about in the last conversation, it holds me accountable. I have a guy who helps me with nutrition and fitness. For those of you who have ever seen me, I'm still carrying baby weight, Verl, from my oldest daughter, who we had 18 years ago. And so I've got somebody that holds me accountable. So I'm reporting my calorie intake. I'm reporting different things every single morning, my blood pressure. Then I have a gentleman who helps me with my radio show. Those are my least favorite calls because he will count all the ums and ands, and he will all the weird pauses and all of the words. I like to make up words every once in a while, so I just think it's the right word, and I just use it. We're on a 50,000-watt AM radio station, and he says, now can you show me somewhere in a dictionary where that word actually exists? And I did it so much that finally I just started calling them Clevisms. So when I use a word, I just say it might be a Clevism, and here's the definition. But those type of people holding you accountable is the key. So number one, here's what you do, and number two, here's the plan for what you're going to do, and number three, what did you do? If you fell short, let's pick it up. If you overachieved, if you did better than you planned, let's try to make some arrangements to move that even more forward. So I have a love-hate relationship with all my coaches, but they are very necessary, and I wouldn't give any one of them up for any reason.
I think it's awesome. Most of the successful people that I know, either they just have coaches. So let's kind of do a quick review and give me your top 10 ways to avoid peaks and valleys.
Stay off the seesaw, get it balanced, get something that weighs just about the same amount you do and put it on the other side of the seesaw, and you'd be surprised how it will stay balanced. Embrace all your conversations because 1 in 5 people are going to buy and sell in the next 3 years. Don't under any circumstances celebrate the closing. Celebrate what caused the closing. Track everything, Verl. Be honest and transparent. Don't fool yourself based on your ability to convert. It's okay to only convert half of the people you talk to or whatever the percentage is. It's okay. Follow up until they die or file a restraining order. I know that wasn't the main subject today, but I just threw that in there. Become a market expert. Once you do, people will respect what you say. and then understand the right words to encourage appropriate action, and you do that by becoming a market expert. We become what we think about most of the time. Ooh. Remove your bottlenecks, focus on your bottlenecks, and then certainly coaching and accountability are necessary, in my opinion, for big success in any business.
So great takeaways, and there's a lot of people on the call right now. Now's an opportunity for you to type in any questions that you have for Cleve. If you want to know about how he structures his team, or how he finds talent, or some of the other things that apply to the topic of today, now's a great time to ask those. And if you don't mind taking a second, Cleve talked about becoming a market expert and being able to position yourself as someone who really knows what's going on out there. What kind of questions or comments do you have as you listen to Cleve talk today?
I guess, and thanks for the opportunity to jump back in. And Cleve, one thing I would love for you to comment on is your involvement in things like social media, blogging. How do you engage consistently, not necessarily with just a direct outreach to your sphere of influence to stay in touch, but as you mentioned, if somebody doesn't close with you today, they're going to close with you next year. In what ways are you using content or some of the social media strategies that you had pulled up on the screen as ways of being consistent on that front, so that there's not any seesawing effects or peaks and valleys in your overall engagement in some of the social media platforms?
Are you sure you want that, or my answer to that question? Because, are you sure? So, well,
I asked, so it's already out there.
we have a lady who helps us with our social media, and so we have a plan to grow our friends on Facebook, our fans of our Facebook page, our followers on Instagram, Twitter, all of that kind of stuff. And so we're looking at those metrics every single month, and we're seeing what we're doing to add to our database of people to communicate with. And then we're trying to cover a broad spectrum. So I'm trying to talk about price increases in this area. I'm trying to talk about overall market stuff over here. I'm trying to talk about financing over here. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to produce content that is custom and is very specific. So I want to take a national trend and that says existing home sales are continuing to rise, like we just saw in RISMedia. And then I want to be able to say, hey, in this particular subdivision and this area, home sales are up 10% over last year. For more information, click here, and boom, they go back to a landing page. So we might do something like that on Facebook. So we are always learning, we are always growing, but we use social media, post a lot of YouTube videos. We'll record conversations and portions of the radio show and post them out on YouTube, and then I'll send them out through Twitter, send them out through LinkedIn, and places like that, trying to drive people to interact with us. It's really important. You got to connect with people where they are.
Right, sure. And for some folks, maybe even on this call, that might not have a team and are trying to figure out and get through, get through the forest by themselves. Just as to reiterate the importance of that, that consistency and that multiple touch points and being where people are, and how are you going to possibly engage and interact, and having that access to a wealth of videos, as you mentioned, and articles that are there at your fingertips, I think could really be of huge assistance from a consistency standpoint for agents on this call that might not have on their team somebody personally dedicated to it. You can be effective in those areas without having to sit down and create content. And certainly the importance of local content is huge. But, being able to come up with unique stuff on a daily or weekly basis to be very consistent. So, what we offer with the Content Solutions packages could also be a way to supplement some of the more local stuff that, all you realtors can create individually to highlight and be hyper-local.
And it's not that the local content is different. It's that you want to take ideas, you want to take content from an organization such as yours, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, and you want to look at it and go, oh my God, this is cool. So I use the first 2 paragraphs of yours, and then I write a real quick 2 sentences that tells about how that applies to this market specifically.
Exactly, yeah.
So if
awesome.
if RISMedia says prices have gone up 8%, then I'll say if that holds true, then the average, because I can look up the average sales price of a home in Atlanta, and I'll say then the average sales price of a home in Atlanta has gone up $21,000 in the last 12 months. That's where you take something general that somebody's done for you, they've done all the work, and you make it specific, because the more specific you make it, the more likely people are to respond. So that specific is just trying to reach the hook to get them to respond to you.
Yep.
It's a beautiful thing and great questions, Ann, and thanks again to RISMedia's Content Solutions for having so much unbelievable content. Cleve, I've got a lot of questions for you and people typing in questions. If you're okay to stay on the webinar for just a moment, I'd like to ask some of those questions to you. But in the meantime, for those of you that are on a tight time frame, let me tell you how you can get your downloads and what's going to be included. If you go to workmansuccess.com/peaks, you'll be able to download these following things that have been provided by Cleve today. He's given you a copy of his lead tracker, the business to goal activity sheet, which I think is brilliant, where it breaks down how many activities you need to do to be able to hit your income goal. And
hey, Verl,
he's giving you this. Yes.
Can I just add something? Those are actually Excel files. So when you get them, you can clean out all the other lead data and start using yours. So these are not PDFs that you have to go through and create your files. They're there. So if you download the business goals to activities and you open up the file and start putting in your information, it'll calculate the numbers for you right then and there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay.
We've also given you the script for the Ford dialogue. So when you're calling through, and somebody asked if you only use this when you're calling your sphere, and you can give me your answer to that, and I'll give you mine. What do you think about that? You only use this when you're calling your sphere?
No, you can use it with anybody. The issue is when you're calling your sphere, you know the questions to ask. So I can ask you how Colleen is, but when you're calling something, you just say, hey, how's your family? Tell me about your family. What about your wife? How long have you been married? Certainly, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. If you stay on those subjects, you can connect with anyone, regardless of whether or not you've met them before today.
Absolutely. It works in Starbucks. It works anywhere you are. And one of the things Cleve said is if there's a group of 5 people, one of them's going to sell. So you should talk to all 5 of them about their family, occupation, recreation, and dreams, get a feeling for where they are with real estate, and then decide what the follow-up plan is going to be going forward so that you can convert. And then, of course, Cleve's customized specifically for this call the right words to say when somebody gives you thoughts or objections on why they should buy or sell in any market. And all of those will be downloaded. You can get those free by going to workmansuccess.com/peaks. So we encourage you all to get that. You'll also have the opportunity, if you're interested in finding out more about coaching and how that works, to set up a free business consult, and we encourage you to do that. Cleve, somebody asked me about your coaching program. What's your coaching program?
We go through and we put together a plan on what activities are required in order to make your business successful, and then we put all the other things in place to make sure you can generate the right amount of leads and you have the right listing presentation and all that kind of stuff. And then comes the hard work, which is where we hold you accountable for working that plan. And I hate to describe it so simply, but that's really what coaching's all about.
That's about it. And Cleve is one of our coaches at workmansuccesssystems.com, so you can get more information by going to the website about that as well. Let's see, a couple other, okay, let's see, a lot of freebie askings. You mentioned use Top Producer. Does that question is user error, is a user question. It says they're not very mobile friendly. Do you use the mobile version of Top Producer?
Yeah, I do, and I mean, I find it actually works fairly well. I mean, you can make changes to plans and contacts and things like that, so I don't have a problem. Maybe it's the type of phone they're using it on. Mine's on an iPhone 6, and I like it.
Do you have any ideas for specific ways people can generate leads if they don't have a huge budget?
You focus on sort of what you already have. So number one, if you're out working with buyers and you're seeing sellers and the sellers are going to have a hard time selling their home because they're missing things, you're certainly not supposed to solicit somebody else's listing, but it doesn't mean you couldn't call somebody and say, hey, or while you're in the home, you couldn't sort of set up a situation where they might be willing to call you when we're done. If you have an open house, calling around into the area. So, I mean, I look at it and say, hey, if you want to attract a dog, you put out dog food. If you want to attract a buyer or a seller, you talk about the houses, because that's the bait. That's what they're looking for. And so, try to do stuff around things you're already doing.
I think that's great. You mentioned A, B, and C lead follow-up. What do you mean by that? Give me a quick scenario of what that means.
A is somebody you have an appointment with, so that's a buyer that I have an appointment with, or a seller I have an appointment with. Those are A. A B is somebody who's looking to do something within the next 60 days, and I'm going to call them every other week. And then a C is somebody who's looking to buy in longer than 60 days. It could be 5 years, or it could be 9 days, and those I'm going to follow up with once a month, every month. And we're going to try to schedule on certain days of the month.
Cleve, unbelievable content, unbelievable data. If you're having an error with downloading the downloads, I'll just ask you to go back and try it again. Write down workmansuccess.com/peaks. We'll make sure that we'll fix any issue that is related to the download. We want to give a great big shout out and thank you to RISMedia for putting on these great agent webinars, and we want to let Ann know with RISMedia's Content Solutions that we appreciate her support, and we thank all of our sponsors that make these possible. For all of you for blocking an hour of your time out today to listen to Cleve, Gaddis, and RISMedia, we want to say thank you. And I want to ask you, what is your action item? What is the one thing you're going to do differently as a result of being here today? Remember, there is no value of increased knowledge if your actions and behaviors are not altered as a result of that knowledge. So, Cleve, you've given us a ton of information, a ton of knowledge. Let's take action and do something with it. Thank you again for being here.